Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another review for you all. Now today's review is another book review. Last time I did my review of The Life and Death of Peter Sellers by Roger Lewis, and I kind of thought that doing a book review every so often instead of a movie review would be cool to change things up a little bit. So I hope you guys don't mind. I hope you guys enjoy these two. I just thought that it would be cool to switch things up a little bit. But today's book that I'll be reviewing is Emma Donoghue's Room. And I read this in the sort of waiting period before reading The Handmaid's Tale. I'm currently watching the series on Channel 4. And my mum and I agreed to do a Kindle swap in which I would read The Handmaid's Tale on her Kindle and she would read A Clockwork Orange on my Kindle, because we both love those books and we're both sort of recommending those books to each other. But she was in the middle of a Thomas Hardy book, and I decided to read this in the meantime because I think it was gifted to her for her birthday and she just had it lying around. So I thought, I'd give this a try, just in the sort of purgatory period waiting to read Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, now I haven't seen the movie adaptation of this book, so I kind of went into it quite fresh, not really knowing what to expect, because obviously reading The Handmaid's Tale now, I sort of have this preconceived notion of what's going to happen and what to expect, sadly. But with Room, it was a blank slate. I had no idea what was going on except a basic idea of the premise. And this novel basically details the life of Jack and his mother, who are held kind of prisoner in this room constructed by her captor, Old Nick. And he was born in the room, little Jack. He's 5 years old and he has no knowledge of the outside world, and it's kind of based around his relationship with his mother and her terrible experience being under Old Nick's control, as he's called. Now, this book is written from the point of view of Jack. He's, as I said, 5 years old, so the language was a little hard to get used to at first because it's written like a 5-year-old is writing a diary. He kind of adds capital letters to nouns, so wardrobe is capitalised, bed is capitalised, chair is capitalised. So it was kind of weird to be plunged into this weird language, but at the same time, the childlike terminology, the fact that it kind of didn't brace you for it, it just stuck you in there without warning and you kind of had to adapt to it, kind of made it a little bit easier in the long run to get used to this language, which I feel like would have been harder if we'd maybe had two different narrative viewpoints, maybe from Ma and Jack, maybe with chapter switches in between, but it was constantly from Jack's point of view. And so I kind of thought in the end that the language that Emma Donoghue used to sort of give the indication that this was being written from a little 5-year-old's point of view was quite cool in the end. I just thought it was a little bit difficult at the beginning. I kind of had to go back and reread stuff because you kind of had to work out what was going on, but in the end it was really quite interesting, and it made it something very different and unique. It was unlike anything I've experienced reading a novel before. The other perhaps maybe being A Clockwork Orange, because you have to kind of adapt to the language that's being used, and so that's obviously the subject matter and the characters are very different, but that sort of instant use of different terminology was, similar in that aspect. But I thought it was a great and unique experience for reading. What's great about this book is that there were lots of dialogue. It made reading the book very easy and addicting, as well as very flowing. This was also helped by the sort of quite quick passage of time, the way that the little boy Jack, perceived time as a character perspective in the room. You know, the days passed quite quickly and it was easy to breeze through, therefore you kind of thought, oh, I'll go on to the next day and see what happens, because it was all over quite quickly. And obviously the sort of rapid dialogue and the quite frequent use of dialogue made that even easier. So I found overall over the initial hurdle of the sort of language use, the actual reading of the novel, once you were in that sort of zone and in that flow, was very easy, and you kind of just found it quite addicting. And I found myself reading 50 pages hardly knowing I'd read them. Now, the situation of the novel definitely evoked emotion in me, and it made me really empathetic, yet not to the brink of tears. It was definitely more than sort of making you buckle down and cry. It was definitely more eye-opening and thought-provoking to Ma's situation, being, you know, kept in a room from 19 to 26. I think that's the time that she's in the room. Obviously, spoilers, I'm sorry. But she's in there for a long time, and, you know, being away from her family, being abused by this man and being abused for such a long amount of time is definitely a harrowing situation, and this book definitely helps you empathise with her character, and definitely people that have gone through this in real life. It definitely has, even though it's from a child's point of view, her situation, Ma's situation, definitely has this sense of realism, and you can imagine this happening, and of course it's happened in the real world in some aspect. So it was definitely moving and definitely gripping. I was actually surprised by how early, again spoilers, the setting shifted from the room to, you know, the aftermath of being in the room. I expected them, obviously from the title, to be in the room for over half of the book, but it actually shifted quite early, which was a nice surprise. But the escape passage was exhilarating, a true page-turning moment for me. It was probably the highlight of the book for myself. It was just really, really gripping, and you really wanted to see what was going on, whether the plan was going to be successful or not. Now, it might sound rather odd, but though there were some touching moments between Ma and Jack, you know, that mother-son relationship, none of the characters felt truly endearing to me, which might sound like I'm just a cold-hearted bitch, but I wasn't particularly attached in any sort of way to the characters. The book felt more like just a window into their experience. Of course, there were some really touching moments, you know, that made you feel, absolutely. But, and even though I obviously wanted this situation to work out for them, I wasn't sort of really pushing it. I wasn't really wishing for anything. I didn't find myself, you know, really attached to anyone in the book. It just felt more like I was looking into this rather bizarre, rather weird situation, rather horrible situation for this mother and this child. So even though obviously for moral reasons I wanted the mother and the child in the book to be okay, I wasn't like completely 100% invested in their characters. And I think that's probably because they were very real. It felt like a real situation. I just wasn't, you know, emotionally invested in them as people. But I was invested in the situation, if you know what I mean. I think that was probably just the way that the book was written. I know probably some people were very, very sort of invested in Jack and Ma, and, you know, probably more so if they've seen the film. I don't know, but it was just me. I guess that's just me. I just wasn't as invested as I have been in other novels in the characters. It felt more just like an experience to me, but that's fine. Now, despite the childhood deprivation aspect being interesting, you know, Jack obviously being deprived of any knowledge of the outside world and having to learn about it, I found that towards the end, the narration from Jack and the endless dialogue where he's asking questions to the adults around him, I kind of found it rather tedious. Though I do obviously understand the struggle that the author was trying to convey, the sort of frustration from all the adults around Jack, you know, trying to get him to understand the many layered aspects of the real world that he's now been plunged into, and obviously he's struggling to understand it. I guess maybe the provoking of that frustration that I felt when reading it, obviously towards Jack, was maybe similar to Jack's guardians in the novel. So maybe that was the point, to evoke that sort of frustration with this character and really make you feel one with the characters in the book, and, you know, trying to make him understand. Maybe that was Emma Donoghue's point, but I still kind of got a little bit tired of it towards the end. So I feel like I'm glad that the book ended when it did, because I think if it had gone on any longer, I would have been thoroughly bored with it. But nevertheless, I thought it was definitely an interesting aspect of the story. Jack's development was, you know, really interesting to watch. I just felt like towards the end I was getting a little bit bored of it. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Overall, the book was definitely innovative, it was intriguing, it was definitely moving, but as I said, I wasn't emotionally attached or invested to the characters 100%. But overall, it was quite an easy read, despite the quite harrowing subject matter. It flowed really well. I thought that the narration from the child's point of view was something that I'd never really experienced before, and I thought that was very interesting. So yeah, I enjoyed Room by Emma Donoghue overall. Was it the best book I've ever read? No, but it was a fascinating story, and I think I would recommend it to a lot of people to give it a try and, you know, see what it's like, because it was honestly very interesting. So yeah, that's my review of Room. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. I know, as I said, it's a little bit different, but hey, this channel's called Eddie Reviews, so that can I guess range from movies to books to TV to whatever. So yeah, I know it's been different, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this review, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye!